Welcome to the Mercy Medical Center Reading blood transfusion video. Today we will go over how to order blood and how to document on it. The first step is the provider more than likely will call and state that we need to give blood. To add the order, click the Add button next to Orders and Plans. Type in blood transfusion. And there's only one way to order the blood transfusion. It has the pizza box to the left of it. Put in your provider name, more than likely going to be a phone with readback, and click Done. The first order is pre-checked. It's consent for blood transfusion. Next, you have to choose if informed consent was obtained or if it was emergent. Vital signs per blood transfusion protocol is pre-checked. And normal saline at 20 an hour is pre-checked as well, and it's a 250 ml bag. To order your products, we're going to go ahead and order PRBCs today. The requisition is built into the blood bank order. Go ahead and left click in the white box to order the PRBCs, and then right click to modify. Collection priority is typically going to be ASAP or STAT since it's blood. Total units requested. So this is how many units we're actually type and crossing for. So if the provider calls and says we're going to give 1 unit now and put 1 unit on hold, we will be type and crossing for 2 units total. Date needed, even though it shows in the date format, you can actually type today or now. It's a free text box. Units to transfuse now, this is how many we're actually giving now. So 1. An indication, we always ask the provider the indication. We'll say hemoglobin less than 7. Special product requirements defaults to none, but if you do need like CMV negative or anything like that, you can change that. This ambulatory only, leave this alone. Moving on down, we need to order the communication that states when we will give that hold unit. So again, left click this transfusion contingency communication, then right click and modify. And from here, the doctor would tell us the instructions. So PRBC leuko reduced, units for contingency or how many are on hold, 1, and contingency reason, we'll say we're still going to transfuse if the hemoglobin is less than 7. In the instructions, it tells you contingency or hold units are only good for 3 calendar days. Moving on down, you can order medications if needed within the power plan. And then here is where we would order the repeat CBC post-transfusion. We have to order it in a nursing communication. The reason being is if we order a CBC without diff right now, we have to give it a time. That way it goes to lab's collection list. Well, we don't know what time that lab needs to come collect it. So we need to order this in a nursing communication. This states order CBC 4 hours post-transfusion. Some of our providers like to change that to 2, but just so you know, latest evidence-based practice shows if you wait 4 hours, that gives the body adequate time to build back up your blood levels. Okay. You can also order additional labs if needed. And notice the video education for blood transfusion is pre-checked. At this point, you would choose Orders for Signature. It's going to give you one last chance to review all the orders and sign. And lastly, refresh. This concludes the initial ordering of the blood transfusion. The next step is actually completing and documenting the blood transfusion. Notice if you go to Activities and Interventions, or for those of you that have Care Compass, it's the exact same thing. You'll have the consent for as a task to make sure you document that the patient has signed the blood transfusion consent. It's just a check mark, done, I did it. All you do is left click in the box. It's going to ask date and time completed. You click OK, and it completes that task. As an FYI, review blood transfusion contingencies. This is our communication telling the nurse when to give that hold unit of blood. This will fire to the task list twice a day, once a shift, typically at 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. It's just a reminder, hey, you have units on hold. Here is where your actual blood transfusion task fires. So if you had ordered 2 units to transfuse now, you would have 2 units on your task list. All you do is double left click, and it takes you directly to iView so you could document your blood transfusion. Here you could go down and document your vital signs. And at this point, underneath blood transfusion, you would click on the little graph to add your dynamic group. Click in the blood unit ID number, make sure it's highlighted, and you can actually scan your blood unit right into there. I'm just going to make up some numbers here. Blood unit type, blood unit product, and blood unit expiration date and time. And click OK. At this point, it's going to give you 3 boxes under the blood unit verified with patient information, and this is where you do that bedside check with a second RN, where you're checking the blood band, the consent for blood, and the identification band. Notice it says witness required. Also at this point, if you tab down, you can document your blood unit transfusion equipment, so typically a pump. You could document your line type. And lastly, make sure you document the transfusion start time. If you hit T for today, it'll automatically document today's date and now's time. When you sign your documentation with the green check mark in the upper left-hand corner, it's going to pull up your witness. From here, you would just type in your witness name, choose their name, click OK, and then hit witness sign. From there, the witness would come in and put in their credentials. Once complete, notice the text turns from maroon to black. One reminder is once the blood is complete, make sure you go back in. I'm just going to add a new date and time column. Go back in and document your transfusion stop time. And you can also document your totals right here. So for PRBCs, I could put my totals here, or I can also go under my intake and output band as well. And sign. In addition, once you complete that blood unit, make sure you right-click on that unit number and choose Inactivate. What that does is it inactivates that column. So if somebody tries to come in here and document, notice it's all grayed out. It does not allow them to document in that field anymore. The nice thing about this is if you're giving another unit, someone's not going to accidentally scroll down and document in the same dynamic group. It'll force them to add a new dynamic group so they could document in that one. The next step is remembering to go in and add the order for the CBC since your blood is now complete. The way to do this is go to your orders and plans, hit add, type in your CBC. Typically it's going to be without diff, and you always want it to be a blood timed once. For this, it's actually going to be a no co-signature required for the communication type because the provider is already going to sign the order that states to order the CBC, so they do not need to sign the actual CBC order. Click OK. Click Done. And all you need to do here is make sure you put the correct time. So I would time it out for 4 hours and click Sign. At this point, the lab would come draw the CBC. You would get flagged for results depending on what position you're in, either care compass or possibly a tracking shell depending on what position you are in. And let's just say at this point, it is decided that we are giving that additional hold unit. If you click into the blood transfusion power plan, we already have an order, the transfusion contingency communication that states to give this if hemoglobin is less than 7. Well, let's say it comes back and it's 6. So now we're going to order that hold unit. The easiest way to do this is click on the little light bulb icons kind of in the upper left-hand corner above that power plan, and it'll show you everything that was not chosen in that original base plan. Scroll down and find the order that states transfuse contingency units now. Choose that order. And again, this is going to be a no co-signature required because the provider has already signed the contingency communication. Click OK. Fill out your order details. So it was 1 unit that was on hold and that we're giving. The product is PRBC leuko reduced, and the contingency reason is give if hemoglobin less than 7. And if you don't remember, the nice part is up here is your transfused contingency communication order, so you could just make sure to match it. Choose orders for signature and sign. And refresh. At this point, if you go back to your activities and interventions on the menu bar, and I'm going to go ahead and refresh, now it's going to give me an additional task to transfuse contingency PRBC leukoreduced unit number 1. Again, follow that same exact process. Double click, document your vitals, add your additional dynamic group, and repeat the process. The very last step that you want to do is once you are done with that hold unit and you've completed your documentation, you want to go back into orders and plans and right click on that blood transfusion power plan and discontinue the entire thing. And the reason we do this is basically for order hygiene, so we're cleaning up orders that are no longer necessary. But the biggest reason is this transfused contingency communication order will continue to fire to the task list twice a day for 3 days if you don't discontinue it. So you can go in and DC that single order, but in addition, you will still see the normal saline at 20 on the MAR, and that might confuse somebody, and you'll still be seeing the vital signs per blood transfusion protocol. So it only makes sense to get rid of that entire power plan. Click OK because we don't want to keep anything. Put in your provider name, and again, we are just following our order hygiene policy, so no co-signature is required. Click OK. Click OK. Choose orders for signature and sign. And refresh. This concludes the blood transfusion ordering and documentation process for Mercy Reading. If you have any questions, please contact your local clinical informatics department at extension 2763.